Very beautiful reading of that. I know.
Cigarette.
Now I'm going to introduce Patty Johnson, who came all the way from Colorado to read a couple portions for you. She's going to read her chapter a little later, but now she's going to read, who did you decide on? Miss B. Miss B would not let me use her real name because, I don't know, she did some naughty things. No, you really don't. She's pretty private. But she was involved with Kurt Cobain, and it's pretty cool. So here's Patty Johnson.
Kurt was a junkie, and even though speed and coke were Miss B's drugs of choice, they soon started palling around. I had done heroin, the snorting kind. I hadn't done the injecting kind. A lot of people around me were injecting dope. I was drugged out and so was he. I was usually going in a faster-paced mode, and he was slower-paced, but he was always friendly, a very nice and gentle person. He complimented me on my looks and my personality because he was into people's personalities more than what they looked like. Maybe that's why I got to liking him, Miss B laughs. Maybe that's why he loved Courtney Love pre-nose job, too. And we shared the same interest in music. We both liked the Lemonheads. Those days must have been like the late 60s all over again. People were just going out and doing whatever during that time. We spent about a month or two together, and I kept in contact with him. I was living in Hollywood, and he would stay with me, and then I'd go over to his motel. At the time, there was a motel across from the Roxy, but they tore it down. When I tell her that Jim Morrison stayed at the same little motel when he was fighting with his girlfriend Pamela, she shakes her head. It figures they'd live in the same place. Anyway, I'd pick Kurt up, and we'd do certain errands. These certain errands were mainly of an illegal nature, but spending so much time together created an intimacy between the two young misfits. He was a real sweetheart, a little skinny, but attractive, small-boned, and not as tall as I usually go for, but he was hot-looking. A lot of our relationship consisted of going to get dope, coming back, and doing it. We just became friendly in that way. I never had great self-esteem, and Kurt had the same problem. He was the most kind-hearted rock star I've been with, definitely. It's funny because both of us were the same way. I don't know who was the more outgoing of the two, probably me because he was so shy. I never understood why, but he had the same problem I had, self-loathing. I can't say I feel like that today because I like myself now, but I still have this scary other side that Kurt had all over. He didn't feel worthy of anything, you know? That's why I think when he became famous, he couldn't handle it. It was overwhelming, and he didn't feel deserving of it, and that's really tragic. I certainly agree that Kurt seemed to be the most obviously tortured artist since Vincent van Gogh chopped off his earlobe and sent it to a hooker. He was almost gothic. If he'd had black hair, he would have been a goth guy. He had deep trouble and chronic pain, Miss B continues. There were problems with his stomach, bleeding ulcers, and he would get very ill. But what he complained of was not only physical, he had mental pain. I know the heroin use must have assuaged some of Kurt's discomfort, but didn't Miss B worry that he might accidentally die from an overdose? Yes, she says quietly, and he was always tragic, as are most of the men I've been with. From what I've heard, Jim Morrison was like that too. They all have a common theme, a kind of death wish, so I knew from the early stages that something could go wrong. He was a suicide junkie. If you knew him, you would know that. Most people in rock and roll have it to some degree. They're different from the rest of us. They're a different breed. I comment that at least Kurt's desire to express himself overcame his anguish long enough for him to create some of the most profoundly influential music in rock history. Yeah, well, most artists, actors, or musicians, a lot of them are shy people, but they come out of their shells during their music and their acting. Somewhere along the line, the kindred, tortured souls started spending nights together. I don't even know how it happened, but it did, and Kurt was an excellent, tender lover, Miss B sighs deeply, before providing some pretty potent insight into Kurt Cobain. Basically, he was into cross-dressing. Wow. Well, I suppose it does make sense. When he wasn't wearing flannel, Kurt showed up on stage in long skirts and smeared glam makeup, seemingly quite comfortable flaunting his androgyny. Since she has claimed to be fairly square sexually, how did Miss B respond to Kurt's particular quirk? I don't know. He did ask me before he dressed up, "If I show you this, are you going to be okay with it?" And I was like, "I'm fine, whatever." He wore pantyhose with cut-out parts in certain areas, high heels, dresses, wigs, makeup, the whole thing. Strangely enough, the sex was very regular, nothing out of the ordinary. There was never another person involved. The only oddity was that he dressed up a lot. That was his specialty. That's what he liked. Kurt knew his masculinity and his femininity. They were mixed together, and he was all right with that. I asked Miss B where Kurt got the various ladies' garments. He had some of his own women's clothes made for him, she says. And he was the kind of person who would go into your closet. He was a dumpster diver, too, and he got stuff out of the trash. I can attest to that because I saw it with my own eyes. He would pick random places around the Hollywood area. Then he'd bring a bundle of women's clothes to my house along with wigs and makeup and jewelry. I don't know where he got the wigs. He would also wear my things. I was glammy back then, very into makeup and clothes. I was stylish, probably more so than I am now. I had lip service, skull and crossbone pants, everything that was cool, and Kurt was creative with the outfits, too.
Who would have thunk it, huh? Oops. Sorry about that. Thank you, Patty. I'm just going to read a little bit more from Sweet Connie of Little Rock's chapter. Actually, I'm going to read the beginning and a little bit into the chapter. She's a maligned groupie girl. She's a very infamous girl. Who's heard of Sweet Connie from Little Rock? Sweet Connie. Well, you're going to hear a lot more about her now. Okay. 15 years ago, while promoting my second book, Take Another Little Piece of My Heart, I subjected myself to the slings and arrows of Jenny Jones' envious TV audience, adroitly ducking the verbal blows like the pro I had become. One disgruntled middle-ager in Bermuda shorts refused to believe that her sockless hero, Don Johnson, had cavorted with the likes of me. Can you believe that? She insisted that the photos of us in my book had been doctored, touched up, she smugly proclaimed. I may not have had too many fans in Jenny's peanut gallery, but I certainly had one on stage. Beside me that harrowing afternoon was another defiant groupie, the renowned Sweet Connie from Little Rock, Arkansas. When she told me on camera in front of Technicolor America that I was her hero and she had followed in my footsteps, I was mortified. After all, Connie Hamsey proudly admitted to having sex with no less than 30 music men in one lustful night. With that kind of behavior, what could that kind of behavior have to do with me? I was a one-at-a-time rock star gal looking for long-term love and romance. After recently spending 24 hours with Sweet Connie, I'm mortified. Stop it! I'm mortified about being mortified that day. The straight-talking Southerner makes no apologies for her still wildly wanton lifestyle, and I greatly respect her for it. Her beautiful smile is genuine as she reverently offers herself up on a self-designed, sequin-splattered platter to musicians and their compatriots, roadies, soundmen, lighting guys, guitar techs, managers, and promoters. Y'all come!